Hello, my name is Ascension Michel, and I will talk a little bit about the concept of language awareness. Language awareness can be defined as explicit knowledge about the language and conscious perception and sensitivity in language learning, language teaching, and language use. Covers a wider spectrum of fields. For example, language awareness issues include exploring the benefits that can be obtained from developing a good knowledge about language, a conscious understanding of how language works, of how people learn them and use them. Language awareness isn't a new concept in teaching English as a second language, yet remains to some degree of peripheral importance both in class and in evaluation. Over the years, language teachers seems to have made great progress through communicative approach in a way the learners have a more complete picture before learning everything about the language. According to Young and Milanovic, the ability to realize certain goals or plans about the other speaker through interaction is the key to successfully continuing conversation. Hammer claims that many of the materials we use for teaching remains organized around grammar and sometimes full of speech acts and functions based on situations which most foreign language students will never encounter, as it is the case of a whole sentence utterance in textbooks, like "How old are you?" or "How much do you earn for a year?" which focus on grammatical correctness and factual information, but accounts to nothing when it comes to put in practice in a real situation. So we have to identify and teach our students to their specific needs, focus on raising their awareness, enhancing their communicative competence instead of making perfectly right nonsense following certain grammatical rules. A major principle of language awareness is the learners learn best when actively engaged and willingly using energy and pay attention to what is being taught. The concept began to be popular in the 1980s as a reaction to the then prevailing prescriptive approach, which focuses on forms and atomistic analysis of the language. Two distinctive features of the language awareness is that language in a larger social, cultural, and ideological framework, rather than the typical language of meticulous study. Secondly, language awareness is an attribute gained through learners' motivated attention to a language and use. Tomlinson, 2003. It is a developmental process achieved by learners on experience and discovery of how language works. Why a language awareness approach? A language awareness approach can be constructive because it is a departure from the traditional top-down transmission of language knowledge that requires least active thinking in learners. Instead, language awareness can be developed only by learners. Paying attention to language uses, how can use language awareness building as a dynamic and intuitive process. What teachers do in taking a language awareness approach is to challenge learners to ask questions, spark the interest, and involve them in exploring themselves of how language works. According to Ben Lear, in a classroom where learners notice for themselves the features of a certain language, they become positive and curious learners, and the self-gain realization will be raised and more internalized than achieved in a traditional classroom. Why and how do we learn? To work with language awareness means to clarify, analyze, and question, and it does not mean merely imply a way of being explorative about language, but it also implies that explicit learning is preferable to implicit learning. Nowadays, the implicit learning approach is still predominant in language learning contexts due to a strong influence from researchers like Chomsky and Krashen. Current research, for example, Robinson in 1995, actually shows that explicit learning fosters language acquisition in a positive way, and that is why the enhancement of language awareness becomes of such importance in language learning contexts. It was Krashen who gave rise to the distinction between acquisition and learning, in which acquisition involves unconscious learning through input and communication, and learning involves conscious learning. However, in general sense of acquisition is the same as learning without the distinction. Eric Hawkins, who is regarded as the founder of the theory of language awareness, explains in Awareness of Language that the focus must be shifted from the teacher to the child's eye. And one of Hawkins' aims in language awareness was that the pupils in their foreign language learning should be stimulated to ask questions about language and how functions and what role it plays in people's lives. Regards to all of you.